Today we're talking about all of the new details for the brand new Path of Exile 2 League starting at the end of next week. Now for comfort's sake, I'm going to split this into several videos because there's a lot to go over here. They're about to drop the patch notes as well, and inside of the patch notes they mentioned over 250 new passive skill tree additions, 90 active skill reworks and rebalances, new lineage support gems, a lot of new stuff. And so these videos could very easily get very long, so what I want to focus on today is just the high level details of what's coming at the end of next week. We'll talk about Druid, we'll talk about the new league mechanic, and at a high level of what's the core gameplay is changing about the game, because there's a lot to be excited about here. So let's start with the big ticket item, the Druid. And this one is probably, and actually is, their most ambitious class to date, because not only is it part of the ecosystem of Path of Exile 2, which means anytime they create a new character with a new model, new animations, that character needs to fit into the expanding world of mechanics in Path of Exile 2, which means it needs to be able to use every single weapon. It needs to be able to use every single ability, right? And so the time of development gets higher and higher, but it gets even more so with this because we have a character that not only can use every weapon in the game, but can also transform into 3 other shape-shifting forms. Now, for a while, we talked a lot about what could be the second and third form, because realistically, at the end of last year, it was really only the bear form that we saw from that. Now, there were leaks about 5 months ago that there were a dragon/wyvern form, and with today's reveal, that is confirmed to be true. So now our 3 forms for the Druid, outside of just the nature-based casting, which we'll talk about in a second, is going to be the bear form, which is kind of like a strength, endurance, charge-based, like slam roar-based build that builds on top of that, with a little bit of an inclination towards fire, though it is Path of Exile 2, you can use whatever combination of elements that you want. And in this, it plays kind of like a warrior in that it has a lot of armor breaking, generation of endurance charges, consuming endurance charges, that sort of thing. But also has a roar, which is a meta gem, which you can use to socket war cries into it to get more value out of it. So this creates a very like endurance charged, fire-based build for the bear itself, building up rage and consuming that as a special resource. And the second form is werewolf, which one we kind of expected. This is like Diablo 2-esque, right? We have the werebear and the lycanthropy and that sort of thing. So if the bear is focused on endurance charges and has a slight leaning towards fire, the werewolf has more of a focus on speed and attack speed and like fast damage, and a little bit of an inclination towards ice damage. There's some spells like moonlight spells, freezing spells. You can even freeze targets and then scratch it with your claws. You see those little like ice shards coming off of the target. Those become little mini grenades. Like they actually have little ice shards that you can suck into the target, dealing damage, or they'll explode and deal ice damage as well. And on top of that, also be able to summon wolves. You can create your own little wolf pack based on this. You will do it based on a mark system. You mark the target, consume the marks, it'll summon wolves, and the wolves will deal damage as well. And you also have an ability called cross slash, which allows you to instantly consume a mark, so that if you're forced in a single target situation against the boss, you can still summon your wolves for extra damage. Now, from that same token, if the roar is a meta gem that sockets in war cries for the bear, the werewolf has a skill called pounce, which is also a meta gem that allows you to socket in marks. And so it's kind of like dipping into a lot of different play styles with that as well. So you can use the mark playstyle with the werewolf and do some really cool damage with that, and also just jump around. A lot of the movement abilities for the werewolf have lots of pounces and jump backs and stuff like that, so good mobility. And lastly, the one that was data mined like 5 months ago that I refused to announce until it actually got confirmed is the wyvern. And this one is more of like an Eastern European wyvern, like a proto drake, you know, walking on the front arms, like very long, very cool. And this one has some really special animations, and you use your wings and your claws for damage, but you can also do these gusts that cause explosions as well. You have breath attacks like shooting fireballs or lightning, spitting out oil, setting the oil on fire, and kind of like the bear, where the bear is reliant on endurance charges and can generate endurance charges. As you can see here, the wyvern can generate power charges, and also kind of like the monk can execute targets and consume them in order to get buffs or gain power charges as well. And those power charges can be consumed for more breath attacks and lots of really cool things. And as you can see here, again, it's not a hard restriction, but it does have a slight leaning towards lightning that has some benefits there with some of the skills that the wyvern has. And I think this actually is a really cool spread. I was hoping it wasn't going to be something super straightforward and simple, so I was hoping for like spider or spriggan or wyvern or dragonkin, just to get some variety on that, because bear and wolf has always been like very big trope for druids in general. So I think having this is really cool, and you're going to be able to play off of breath attacks and bouncing attacks, and even this breath attack here, it shoots out fireballs and spawns volcanoes, and you could be like like this breath attack, spell casting dragon. It's super neat. And separate from that, it is druidic magic, and so there are magic spells as well, aside from the transformations and the shape-shifting that the druid has. It has a lot of like nature elements too. We know there's tornadoes, there's volcanoes, there's explosions, and there's also more like actual forested items, like vines, spawning these vines that can root enemies, deal damage to enemies, slam enemies with vines, and they even have some really cool like conditional modifiers for these skills for druid. One of them is this rainstorm that you can put down, which if it ends up landing on targets, it will make them wet, which means it's a status effect. It means they're more vulnerable to shock and freeze, but also if the rain lands on the vines, it can do special things like cause buds to sprout and explode, spread the vines faster, increase their power output and things like that. All of that kind of synergizing together is really cool. But since it's a new spellcaster type set of skills coming into the game, it means you can play it with, you know, other spellcasters like witch or sorceress, or some of the spellcaster builds we've seen for like ranger or monk in that case, having that synergy there. But there's a new skill for the druid which could add a lot of really cool interactions, and that is the gathering storm skill. So what this does is it causes any persistent storm ability to, instead of being in one place, roll forward as it moves, so you can walk through it. This works for all the storm skills for druid, but it also works for the storm skills for sorceress as well. So you can do lightning storms, firestorms, ice storms, put the rainstorm down and have it roll with you, so you can see it rolling with the character here moving forward. It's kind of hard to see on the ice, but you can actually cause that to move, and it has synergies not only within the druid class but also with the sorceress as well. A new class means a new weapon type as well, and in this case we are getting talismans, and these are going to be a new primary weapon that you can equip, and they have a special modifier for transformations as well. So you'll see when this talisman goes online, you see those little markers underneath the talisman, one with a bear, one with a wolf. You can actually select the form you want the talisman to take, and this is going to have some pretty interesting implications for the other classes as well that may pick up talismans and use them. And since it's a spellcaster weapon, it comes with its own passive built-in spell, like for wands and staves and stuff like that. Same thing here. So you can see this unique talisman that we have grants the skill Molten Crash as part of it, and there's going to be some really cool things that you can do to convert damage based on bear skills, wolf skills, wyvern skills, spells, and that sort of thing. But as we know, when you add spellcaster weapons that have built-in abilities, that means we can do some really cool stuff with other classes too. For ascendancies, the Mention the Druid will start with two different ascendancies. It is going to be the Shaman as well as the Oracle, and the Shaman is going to focus a lot on transformation and nature magic as well, as you'd expect. One of the cool ones here is Wisdom of the Magi, which allows you to increase the power of runes and idols, which means that when you have this equipped, runes will gain a bonded passive that is in addition to the one that's already there, which gives you a lot more build customization if you end up going the Shaman ascendancy. As you can see here, the Greater Desert rune gains increased ignite magnitude on top of the stats that are already upon that rune. And the Shaman also has a ton of ways to interact with not only the shape-shifting, but also with the spell casting as well, being able to create multiple storms of elements and things all over the screen, which just makes it a really fun addition to the game overall. The next ascendancy is freaky deaky Dutch in so many ways. It is called the Oracle, and kind of like the Chronomancer ascendancy, it has very unique effects that are going to be really fun to play around with. So the idea of the Oracle is that the Oracle is a farseer, a sightseer, they can see the future, right? They are an oracle that can see what's coming, and that plays into the ascendancy in a lot of ways. You can predictively see what of your spells would be better, and so when you know what spell is going to be amplified, you can use that spell to gain bonuses for it. But one of the most unique aspects of the Oracle ascendancy that I can't wait to try out is going to be this one right here. It allows you to duplicate a monster, and then when you deal damage, you will hit both the duplicate and the monster, which is essentially going to mean that you're doing double damage. So like as you do an AoE here, it's going to hit the duplicate and the boss at the same time, doubling up the damage into a single health pool, which is crazy. Additionally, the Oracle, kind of like we saw with the Rise of the Abyss League, is going to add new talent points or new passive skill tree points to the tree when you have special ascendancy points activated inside of the Oracle tree. So things messing with minions, these are all going to be special just to that ascendancy. You can even do some really cool endurance-based builds or tanky-based builds or bear-based builds based on the Oracle ascendancy as well. Next, let's talk about the new league, the Vol League. They're called the Vol League. So this is going to be the brand new league mechanic. We'll talk a little bit what's going to happen to the Rise of the Abyss once that one gets retired and integrated into the game in general. but this one is going to be focused a lot on being able to explore. Now, I'm not going to do too many Path of Exile references here for Path of Exile 1, just because you'll probably recognize some of the maps here for Synthesis. You'll also probably recognize some of the crafting options for like Foulborn, but I know not everyone here is familiar with Path of Exile 1, so we're going to skip all that. So just kind of see how many references you can notice on some upgrades from PoE 1 mechanics. But in general, the whole purpose of this league is to give you a lot of really interesting crafting options, but also allow you to explore on this map. You'll have this map where you'll be able to do grid lines on it, and you'll be able to unlock rooms, level up rooms, and there's a strategy on how you manage this. This is kind of like an upgraded version of Synthesis, so you can actually kind of go through and build out your own playstyle, and also you can store up runs before it happens as well, which means you can have currency items that you can take with you before you go into the new Vol League. So each time you do a run of this, you'll have this temple console that you'll go up to, and you'll have little nodes that you can place down on it. And a very simple layman's term summary of this is you will get these nodes that you can place down on here. You are discovering special rooms, kind of like a Minesweeper vibe to it. And based on the rooms that you find, you'll get special rewards, crafting stations, and opportunities to get stronger. But you can also level up the runes by the adjacent tiles as well, making them stronger, increasing the power of the monsters, but also subsequently increasing the value of your loot as well. And there's special encounters in here as well as a pinnacle boss as part of this league too. Now, one of the special crafting, there's several crafting options in here that are going to be really impactful for how we play the game here. But the first one is, since it is a Vol league, right? Vol is all about corrupting and chancing things. There's going to be a special station inside of this that allows you to double corrupt an item, which means that you can corrupt an item by default if you use a Vol orb or whatever, but there's going to be a special station inside of here that allows you to corrupt it a second time, which either could change the stats on it or add duplicates of stats or new stats on it. But if you corrupt it the second time, it has a 50% chance of being destroyed on you. So it could create some really insane items, but in the true Vol fashion, it's going to be kind of random and you'll have to play with that. There's even going to be some crafting stations that allow you to replace stats on unique items as well. And they also mentioned that they're going to allow you to be able to, when you hit one of these crafting stations, you can hit the take button, which will allow you to spawn a currency item that will allow you to do the crafting action at your leisure in your hideout. You don't have to like do it right on the spot and have the item in your inventory. You could do the crafting that way if you want to, but if you don't want to, you can hit a button, it'll drop a currency item, you can take it with you wherever you go, and you can use that later whenever you have time or you have an item that be worthwhile. Since it is Vol as well, it will also be adding in new soul cores to the game that have some really cool effects like bonus movement speed, which can be really fun. Like this one, the Thesis Soul Core added to the game. I think more sockets like these are going to be really cool. This one changes offerings or having offerings expire and spawn minions and stuff like that if you're running a minion build. There's also this new temporary buff mechanics. You can go up onto this table and lock yourself in, and it'll ask you to choose one of your limbs, one of your arms or one of your legs. And this will basically give you a time-limited buff for your character, which in some cases can be quite powerful. However, what they mentioned here on the stream, which may or may not be a hot take for some people, is it is limited to a single life. So what will happen is you'll step on this little platform, it'll replace your arm with some like cyborg robotic Vol arm or leg or whatever, and you'll keep that buff until you die once, and then you'll respawn with your normal limb that you had replaced. So it's like a temporary buff that you can keep as long as your character is alive, but if for any reason you die, you will lose it and have to go find another one. And yes, there is a new pinnacle boss inside of this as well. You will find it as one of the entrances inside the console map. You'll have to unlock the chambers and then get to the chambers and enter, and once you do that, you'll be able to fight Aziri back in time, and any Warhammer fan is going to recognize this character because it feels like it's very much Slanesh coded when she steps out. So she's coming out and trying to attack. This should be a pretty fun fight, and hopefully it's not too gimmicky based on what we've seen so far, but in general, I think it's going to be kind of a nice addition just to have more bosses, more encounters, more mechanics, more things to test your build out with. Now, the previous league, Rise of the Abyssal, since everyone loved it so much, more or less, a couple minor things that needed to be tweaked in general, but a lot of people liked it in general. This one's going to be integrated into the core game as part of the end game experience. So now one of the modifiers you can get on maps in your Atlas is going to be the Abyss. They also will add in an Abyss tree to the Atlas skill tree, so you can increase your Abysses. You can add Abyss modifiers to your Waystones, so it is now one of the end game activities alongside Breach and stuff like that, so you can actually just have that as part of the game because everyone loved it so much. And it also will still include the Well of Souls for the Well of Souls crafting and those kind of bonuses. However, with this patch, they mentioned that they're going to no longer allow you to distill or do special crafting on waystones just because it felt like it was a required activity, and a lot of people had negative feedback about it just because it felt like it was just, it was almost like you had to do it to get the value, and anytime that happens in an endgame crafting scenario, it feels like your choice is taken away, and it doesn't feel as good. So they're going to be removing that, and now all waystones will have kind of a much more basic currency upgrade for them as well, and this includes with the new modifiers for the Abyss League being added as a final element in the game. A couple general notes there, toning down the effect of the Delirium Fog. This is a big one because it became so hard to see any ground effects, explosions, volatile crystals that are floating around the ground that would attack you and destroy you, which was freaky deaky. They also mentioned that they're going to stop scaling the number of monsters in endgame maps. And I know some people are going to like this, some people aren't, so comment below how you feel about this. But in the last patch with .3.1, they talked about how they made the change to make it so it was less dense early on and then built up to a higher density into the end game as you got to T15 and above. However, they decided that they're going to, instead of scaling up density, they're just going to scale up rewards and difficulty on its own, which means that instead it's just going to be a similar number of monsters, but they might have more HP, they might deal more damage, and they're going to give more XP and drop better loot as you go higher and higher. And I think this there needed to be a cap on anyway. Anyone that did the like really high level T16 super juiced, overrun by Abyss modifiers, some PCs and machines just couldn't handle. Like, it was just too many mobs on the screen at once. It was lagging like crazy and you couldn't see anything. So I think what they're doing is they're limiting it partially for the gameplay experience, but probably more likely based on performance and just general usability, because as the density gets too high, it becomes unruly. Now, part of me, as an ARPG/PvE game enjoyer, I like having density, I like having more mobs to fight, but there's definitely going to be an upper limit on how, it's like more fun, and then if it gets too dense, it becomes less performant, kind of clunky, and really annoying. So finding that right balance is tough, and I guess they're saying that they found it, and they're going to focus more on making the mobs more difficult rather than more numerous. They also mentioned a big part for them in this patch, I moved my big fat head, is they're going to be improving performance. This is going to be the same machine before and after the improvement changes. They said they made some focus on how the CPU utilizes its cores and threads and be able to manage that better. And so they said that it's going to be about a 25% performance increase if you were CPU bottlenecked before in the previous patch, and particularly going to be super useful for consoles that may have been struggling in some areas as well. And I think this change plus the density change should go a long way in helping some of the machines run better with the game overall. On top of all that for this league, which I'm going to save for the patch notes coverage and things like that, is they are rebalancing a lot of the game, adding a bunch of stuff. So they mentioned 250 new passive skill tree skills, 90 active skills being touched up or reworked or just buffed in many cases, 9 new lineage supports, 21 lineage support rebalances, updates to ascendancies like Smithikitava. They balanced a lot of the things not being used in the game right now, including many unique items, and they added 11 new unique items as well. So a lot of the core game is changing. New passive skill tree items, like 250 nodes on the tree is crazy. There's a lot of stuff added, especially on the side of Druid. You can see like a lot of the changes in the top left corner there, a lot of new nodes to explore, and obviously, again, it's Path of Exile 2, which means that anytime there's one change for one class, it can ripple over into other areas, which means that adding new nodes on the strength/int hybrid side of the tree is going to benefit warriors, it's going to benefit sorcerers, it's going to benefit witches, and also gives us options for instilling and things like that we can go over and grab new nodes on as well, which is super cool. So that's the high-level recap for what's going into the game next week, and we can dive into more details with the patch notes once those are live soon. But let me know what you think about all these changes in the patch. Are you excited? Are you going to be playing Druid first? Or going to stick to the class that you like the most in the new league? Let me know what you think about all this down below in the comments. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.